Today, Manhattan real estate is valued in the trillions of dollars. It houses the headquarters of global finance, media, and diplomacy. But zoom out and travel thousands of miles across the globe, and you'll find a tiny, jungle-covered volcanic speck in the Indonesian archipelago. What connects these two completely different places is a 17th century transaction. The Dutch Empire originally colonized Manhattan and built the settlement that became New York. Then, they intentionally gave it away to the English in exchange for that tiny volcanic speck. That speck is called Run Island. It is less than 2 miles long, and at the time, it couldn't even grow enough food to feed its own inhabitants. What it did grow, however, was the Myristica fragrance tree. The seeds of this tree gave the world nutmeg. Looking back, the decision seems absurd. Why would a major maritime empire surrender a massive, strategically perfect harbor in North America for the ingredient we sprinkle on holiday lattes? To make sense of this choice, we have to throw away our modern maps. We have to look at the 1600s not as a competition for land, but through the strict lens of a corporate balance sheet. This is a map of New Amsterdam from 1672. Unlike the English Puritans who settled New England to build a religious utopia, the Dutch West India Company established this town as a corporate branch office. Their sole objective was to extract wealth. In North America, wealth meant furs. The outpost was positioned specifically to collect and ship thousands of beaver pelts back to European markets, where they were highly prized for making waterproof hats. Because the main goal was profit, the directors in Amsterdam cared very little about who actually did the work. They routinely ignored ethnic and religious differences among the settlers, creating an environment of accidental tolerance, simply because discrimination disrupted the labor supply. Dozens of languages were spoken in the streets, and that pragmatic melting pot left a permanent physical footprint. Neighborhoods like Brooklyn and Flushing, and streets like the Bowery and Harlem still carry the names of their Dutch origins. This trading post laid the cultural groundwork for modern commerce. But to the executives back in Amsterdam, this branch was underperforming. It was sparsely populated, surrounded by hostile competitors and a financial drain to defend. Across the Atlantic, the English and the Dutch were locked in a fierce maritime rivalry. In August 1664, that tension arrived at Manhattan shores, when 4 English warships sailed into the harbor and demanded the colony's surrender. The colony's authoritarian Director General, Peter Stuyvesant, wanted to fight. Upon receiving the English demands, he tore the surrender terms to shreds and ordered his meager forces to prepare for a final stand. But the citizens of New Amsterdam refused to back him. As merchants and tradespeople, they knew an artillery bombardment would obliterate their cargo and storefronts. Their loyalty was to their own commerce, not to a distant corporate board. Realizing he had zero support, Stuyvesant relented. Local delegates signed the official Articles of Surrender without a single shot being fired. The English marched in, and New Amsterdam seamlessly became New York. Losing a foothold in North America looked like a humiliating defeat locally, but the Dutch Empire saw leverage. They used the loss of Manhattan to negotiate a far more lucrative prize across the planet. 3 years later, the two powers signed the Treaty of Breda to settle their territorial disputes. Under the terms, the English officially kept New York. In return, the Dutch secured complete, undisputed ownership of Run Island. The target was nutmeg. In the 17th century, it was an ultimate status symbol. People believed it preserved meat and cured the bubonic plague. This chart compares nutmeg's purchase price in Indonesia to its European resale price. 10 pounds bought for pennies sold for a 60,000% markup. By trading Manhattan to secure Run Island, the Dutch locked in an absolute monopoly on this expensive commodity. Monopolies are notoriously difficult to hold forever. By the late 18th century, French and British operatives managed to smuggle nutmeg seedlings out of the Dutch-controlled islands and successfully planted them in their own tropical colonies. This line shows the crash of nutmeg's market value once the global supply expanded. The price plummeted, the Dutch monopoly collapsed, and the tiny, once heavily contested Run Island faded completely into historical obscurity. Meanwhile, the English colony of New York thrived. It leveraged its incredibly deep, naturally protected harbor and the deeply ingrained Dutch culture of free-flowing trade to attract ships and merchants from all over the world. The original Dutch settlement included a defensive palisade they called the Walstraat. Today, we know it as Wall Street. The pragmatic, profit-driven DNA planted by a 17th-century corporation grew directly into the financial engine of the modern global economy. It is easy to look at a modern map and laugh at the Dutch for trading away New York City for a sprinkle of spice, but history is only obvious in reverse. In 1667, sitting on a struggling fur post, they traded a liability for a monopoly on the most valuable substance on Earth. By the math of the day, it was the perfect trade.